You're listening to Legally Blissed Conversations. This podcast reclaims and rewrites the stories female attorneys have been told about how we should practice law, grow our businesses, treat our clients, treat ourselves, and craft our identities as female attorneys. We'll hear inspiring stories from current and former female attorneys, the ones who question the stories they've been told, the ones who aren't afraid to live boldly and step into their own power. We'll learn from women who define success on their terms. Through lighthearted and curious conversation, we'll unpack the challenges these inspiring female attorneys have already navigated. So join me on this journey. You'll be empowered and ready to rewrite a completely new story about what is possible for you. Today, I have Laura F. Kelley, Esquire. She is a professional certified coach and mindfulness instructor whose aim is to help attorneys find joy, balance, and harmony in their practices and lives. She's also a practicing immigration attorney with LFK Immigration. She is the chair of the AILA South Florida and AILA Central Florida Health and Wellness Committee and a member of the AILA National Lawyer Wellbeing Committee and Miami-Dade Wellness Committee. She also frequently presents at various bar associations around the country in order to promote attorney well-being. She's also a Girl Scout leader. I'd love to talk about that. That's amazing. And you can find more information about Laura and her work at thejoyfulattorney.com. And I will have that down in the show notes. So thank you so much for being here today, Laura. Welcome. So tell me all the things. Why law? Why law? Why did you go to law school?
Wow. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor. I'm really excited to be here. Why law school? Oh my gosh. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I was one of those people who, as a kid, I don't know. I think my mom implanted that in my brain, actually, because I didn't know any lawyers. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and certainly the first person to go to law school. But my mom had always told me, you would argue with the devil if he came and told you that the sky was green. And I was like, yeah, I would, because the sky is blue. And she's like, yeah, but everybody else would be running away. And I was like, oh, that's not an option. Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. There was really nothing else I wanted to be until I became a lawyer. And then I was like, oh, wait.
Let's fast forward a couple of years.
Exactly.
Right? When was the point when you were like, holy shit, I am a lawyer and I need some assistance in the like mental health well-being space? Or like, when did you first start recognizing that as an issue with like not only maybe yourself, but other female attorneys that you were working with?
Well, I have to say, I've always struggled with mental health issues. I want to say that, I think it's really important to be open about that because there is so much stigma, and it's, I think that there's a lot of shame involved in any kind of illness, but especially like mental health. So I struggled in law school is really the first time I was like, hey, something's not working here. That was first year. And truth be told, I after taking the bar exam, and I graduated in 2006, took the bar exam in 2006 in California, and I decided to run away. I took the bar exam and then I moved to Spain.
I love this story. This is fascinating.
Yeah. So I moved to Spain and lived in Spain for about 7 years. And I was a lawyer in California. So I passed the bar, but I was living in Spain. And I ended up getting a Master of Law in EU law in Spain, and ended up doing antitrust law. I was going to say in Spanish, antitrust law for the European Union and Spain. But I wasn't an attorney in Spain. I was an attorney in California. So my career trajectory was very limited in Spain. I speak Spanish fluently.
Jurisdictions, right? Those pesky jurisdictions that you have to like navigate.
Well, and also the language. Like I'm not a native Spanish speaker. I learned most of my Spanish in Spain. But legal writing is something that is, very different in Spanish.
Oh,
So
sure.
unlike English, where we have like the plain English movement, Spanish is as complicated as it possibly can be in legal writing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's like another level, right? Like a
Yeah,
new level of complexity to kind of an already complex situation.
exactly.
Okay.
And it's funny because I had gone to law school initially wanting to be a public defender. So I wanted to do criminal law. And then I found myself in Spain doing essentially corporate law. I was like, what am I doing? So that was the first real point in my career where I was like, what is going on here? And by that time I had gotten married and had decided that I wanted to have a child and really needed to figure out where the next stage of my life was going career wise, because I didn't see a long-term future in Spain. As much as I did end up loving the work that we were doing, it wasn't what I went to law school to do. And I didn't feel like I was honoring my purpose. So what I ended up doing is after getting married in 2012, I did my first immigration case for my husband. So he's a British citizen, and I started that process with him. And about 30 days after we started that application process, I found out that I was pregnant. So then I ended up giving birth to my child in Spain, and literally 12 weeks later, my husband had his visa, and we moved to the United States.
And here you are. Did y'all go to Florida? Did you move directly to Florida?
We did. We did move directly to Florida. He had a job offer here, so it made sense for us to come here, even though we had no family here, just a few friends from the industry that he was in. So it was crazy, but and I was, as you know, the jurisdiction issue. Here I am.
There you are. Oh no. Oh no.
Exactly. So it's like I'm a California licensed attorney with experience in EU antitrust law. There's not a lot of demand for an EU antitrust lawyer in the United States.
Time to brush up on that those family law skills, right? I'm sure you're like having to pick up rule against perpetuities again and having like horrible flashbacks.
Well, the beauty of being an immigration lawyer is that I didn't have to take the bar again. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do.
Hold up.
Yeah.
I've learned something new. I mean, I learn new things all day. So you didn't have, or all the time. So you didn't have to take the Florida bar to get to be able to do immigration law?
To practice immigration before the agencies, you do not need to be licensed in the state that you're practicing in. Now, some states, sorry, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say that's
your mind's blown.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. So there's some states that regulate regulate it differently. I think there's one state in which they want you to be barred if you're practicing any kind of law in their state. But when I initially started, I put a caveat at the end of my signature line, basically saying I only practice immigration and nationality law, and then I'm barred in the state of California.
And what's federal based?
Yeah.
Right. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So that's good. So you were able to do that. You kind of, I guess, got like your really good first foray in that by having your husband as your first client. Yeah. So I presume did not sue you for malpractice. So
not yet.
He's still there, right?
He's a citizen now. He's gone all the way up. Yeah, he's a citizen now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you should like give you some kind of bonus, right? So that's amazing. Okay, good. So you're back in Florida, you're back in America after being in Spain, and you're setting up your immigration practice. So that's not really criminal law. So how are things going at that stage for you?
Well, I would say it's interesting because there is an intersection of immigration law that with criminal law, and we call it crimigration. So it actually is quite. There is an element of criminal law there, and there's a social justice is involved in it. So I felt an immediate sense of purpose. And when I initially I want to clarify something, that the immigration law is more than just practicing before the agencies. We also practice before the federal courts. So both the district courts and the appellate courts. So to get in many jurisdictions, and Florida is one of them, the Southern District of Florida, you do have to be barred in the state of Florida in order to practice before that court. But at that time, I wasn't doing that work. And yeah, I felt at that time, I felt this love for immigration, even though I can completely admit that I became an immigration lawyer out of convenience. It was, I speak Spanish and I didn't have to take another bar exam.
Nothing wrong with that. Trust me.
But I found a purpose. I found a purpose there. Yes. I really did. And I started doing a lot of detained work. So that's very, criminal based. Most of it is, not all of it. There are some, quite a few actually, non-criminal, foreign nationals that are detained. But I really loved the speed of that work, the immediate kind of gratification of that work. And immigration law, unlike other areas of the law, goes fast, at least in the detained setting. Yeah. So you see, it works through much more quickly than you would see it in other areas where you're waiting, years for a court date.
Right. So you get that satisfaction, right, a lot faster in this area of the law.
Yeah. And at the time when I started practicing, it was during the Obama administration. And towards the end of the Obama administration, we really had a lot more tools that we could use to help people in difficult situations without a change in the law. So it was an interesting time.
Okay. Yeah. So at what point were you interested in coaching, and specifically like ultimately getting a certification with life coach school and all of that good stuff that goes along with that?
Okay. So, it's so much, there's so much here. I was practicing, initially with a firm, and I wasn't happy with the way that firm was run in terms of like ethics, and it really scared me. So I, after consulting the California Bar ethics line, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go on my own and run things like, I felt that they should be run.
Right.
And so I was solo for several years. And then in 2016, I was renting space with another immigration attorney, and we decided to merge. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, 2016, no, 2019, excuse me. So as you know,
together. It's all running.
Yes. Everything before 2020, it runs together. I don't even know.
Those were the before times, right? That's what I called it, the before times.
Yeah. So speaking of that, like we were, we had a kind of a double whammy. We were dealing with the Trump administration and the pandemic shortly after we merged our firms together. And it was rough. I would say from 2017 to 2019, those 2 years were extremely difficult for all immigration attorneys. And I struggled. I struggled with mental health. I actually got sober in September of 2019 because I felt that I was using alcohol really as a self-medication, basically, to deal with the stress. And I had been at that point seeking coaching. And so I joined the Life Coach School has a program called Scholars. And it's like self-coaching where we would get little booklets and go on coaching calls and actually get coaching once a week. And it really, truly transformed my life. Sorry.
No, I'm curious. Did you use their programs like Stop Over Drinking specifically to help you? Because I'm familiar with the Stop Over Eating, Stop Over Drink, because I've kind of gone through some of those programs.
Okay. No, I didn't use Stop Over Drinking by like the program itself. By the time that I actually stopped drinking and kind of recognized it as a problem, I had already gone through the other programs. And so for me, it's like a seamless transition. And I'm fortunate in that the drinking was kind of a symptom, not the illness. And I found I didn't need to do a program on the drinking. I'm so grateful that it was effortless to stop drinking in 2019. But there were other things that I had to work through and continue to work through, that the self-coaching helped. And so the programs that Brooke Castillo created of, understanding that it's our thoughts, not our circumstances, that create our feelings, which drive our actions to produce our results, was like
mind blowing, game changing, for sure.
Yeah.
So how are you integrating that work initially into like your everyday life and or practice?
Well, basically what I was doing was, doing a lot of self work, doing what she calls thought downloads. So, basically getting my thoughts onto paper, working models, figuring out what my thoughts were, really gaining awareness. And at this time, I'm also into meditation. So I'm doing a lot of meditative work and a lot of the coaching work. And those two things are really very integrated. Buddhist psychology and mindfulness meditation also has a basis in cognitive behavioral therapy, which coaching is really based on. It's this idea of your thoughts. Getting awareness of your thoughts will allow you to achieve whatever you want in your life. Getting awareness and being able to make those changes to your thought, to your mindset, is really where everything flows from. So it was integrated in everything I did at that point. But I wasn't necessarily interested in coaching. It just was something I used in my personal life to have a better life. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh, I realized that I wanted to help people the same way that I had been helped. And so I decided in March of 2020 to get certified. And I had to wait until September. And by the time September 2020 rolled around, we had been almost, I guess 6 months into the pandemic. And we are facing a very contentious election. And then for immigration attorneys, that election really, had weighed heavily on us, because it wasn't just politics. For us, it was the future of our profession and our clients. And that I felt, and a lot of other colleagues felt, that hung in the balance. And a lot of us were really suffering with that. In addition to having all these tools that we had previously had stripped away, and the practice just became extremely difficult in 2020. And I initially started coaching because I wanted to do wellness coaching, particularly around weight loss and exercise, because that's the programs that I had worked with Brooke, and I had a lot of success. I had lost 50 pounds and kept it off, and and discovered that I was an athlete at 38.
There's an athlete in all of us.
There really is. I did not know that, but it turns out. And so I was like, oh, this can really change people's lives to recognize, how to get control of our eating habits, because the emotions and eating and exercise are all so wound together. And so that's what I had initially wanted to coach on. And I had started coaching on that topic previously. But once we were getting into the last months of 2020, particularly September, October, I recognized that it wasn't just me who was suffering. My colleagues were suffering. And I decided that this is a really great way that I could help my colleagues, is by using my coach certification in a way that would benefit them. So I started in December by creating a 6-week burnout course for attorneys to get the tools to manage their thoughts, first and foremost, their time, their boundaries, self-maintenance practices, so that they could be more resilient in the face of these challenges that we were having in that year.
Mm-hmm.
That's what started it all.
Yeah. So let's talk about burnout.
That's
Yeah. So, I mean, we could go in a lot of directions because, I mean, I think setting boundaries, it can be just that one change, right? And learning how to actually set boundaries is a form of self-care.
yeah.
I mean, that's a wonderful topic. I think also though that burnout is something that so many lawyers are facing, right? Like not just immigration attorneys, like from every like walk of life in terms of lawyers, male and female. So how are you specifically helping attorneys address burnout?
Well, so burnout is a multifaceted issue. So there's not one particular thing that causes burnout.
Mm.
One thing that there are different ways of practicing, and there are different, there are big law attorneys, small law attorneys, government attorneys, agency attorneys, whatever. There's like the whole gamut of different kinds of attorneys. But I think you're right. Just no matter what area we're in, we tend to be experiencing a great deal of confusion, overwhelm, burnout, however you want to describe that sense of dread walking through the door.
The Sunday scaries. Have you heard people talk about the Sunday scaries?
I have not, but I like that. I like that.
Right. That anxiety that you're getting before and you can't even like really put your finger. I mean, maybe there is like a big, meeting that you have that week, but it's just that overwhelming sense of anxiety that you have before you start your week.
Yeah, the pressure, the notification that pops up, there's so much there. And so, one of the things that that I really focus on is time management. Because I think so many attorneys, none of us really were taught how to manage our time. Nobody is taught how to manage our time.
Let's take a quick pause for a message from my sponsor, Prominent Practice.
Are you thinking about a career transition from big law or partnership to a solo practice, selling your practice, or maybe you're launching a project unrelated to law? Whatever the reason for your transition, you'll need support along the way. Enter Prominent Practice, an executive consulting and marketing firm specializing in branding, positioning, and reputation management for transitioning attorneys. Founded by a female entrepreneur who spent a decade building smart digital platforms for thought leaders before pivoting to focus on high-end service providers who were preparing for successions, mergers, and acquisition events in their businesses. If you're thinking about making a big business move, don't risk losing the ability to leverage the reputation you've spent your career building. Let Prominent Practice be your guide. Visit prominentpractice.com/blissed for an exclusive introduction.
We do our best and we think we're doing the right thing. We create lists, we use Post-its, we use all these things that actually end up making our time management more complicated and actually produce more overwhelm. So one of the things I like to do is tease apart different, I would say, maladaptive strategies to managing time and really say, like, this is the way that I've transformed my time management. And I give tips to other attorneys to use these same skills. Now, people have to use what works for them, and it's not a one size fits all package. But I do think that we have, these strategies that just don't work for us. I have a lot of clients who use their email inboxes as to-do lists. That's not the ideal way to do your tasks.
It is not ideal.
It is not.
Number one, the email is not, that inbox is not your to-do list.
Yeah, 100%. The number one problem with an email inbox is that every time you go back to it is you're going to have more emails. And I actually think one of the number one causes of burnout and overwhelm for attorneys is actually decision fatigue. So, I mean, and we, sometimes it's so pervasive that we don't even realize that we have decision fatigue. But essentially decision fatigue is being exhausted because of all of the different decisions you have to make. And decisions are just thoughts, but that's not a net neutral situation. Thinking and overthinking and planning and deciding, it actually burns a lot of our energy through our brain. It saps our energy. That's why we can sit at the computer all day long, not exercising anything else but our fingers, and be completely and utterly destroyed. It's because our brain has been working all freaking day.
I mean, our brain does it not burn calories?
It does.
I was gonna say, I feel like I've heard that. I could be completely making that up, but I feel like I've heard that your brain like literally burns calories. So
yeah, because it needs it. So our brains, apparently, they're like 3 to 4 pounds, depending on the person, I guess, depending on the size of our heads, size of our brains. But our brains actually burn like 25 or utilize, let me say that, 25% of our energy consumption in our bodies.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember the first time that I really had that awareness of decision fatigue. And I think it had to do with like, what are we having for dinner? And I was at like flip the desk point, right? Where I was like, I can't make the decision on what to eat for dinner. Like someone just make this decision for me. Right. And I remember thinking like, I'm just exhausted from having to make decisions. And I'm thinking that like, because of the pandemic, we have a career where it is so decision-making heavy. Like we are constantly trying to navigate work, but then you throw the pandemic on top of it. I mean, you're having to decide like, well, do I go into the grocery store? Do I wear a mask? Like, should I be washing my hands like after I touch it? You know what I mean? Like you're always like, if you have children, right? Like double the decision-making that's required for all of that. So that's really fascinating. So how do you work with clients on that? Is it primarily helping them bring awareness to that specifically?
For sure. Awareness is key. But also it's can we look at our time management, look at our organization, and really figure out how we can minimize the number of decisions we make in a day. So for example, the whole thing about the email as a to-do list is really key to kind of understanding this. So if you're using your email as an inbox, your email inbox as a to-do list, every time you go back to your inbox, you have to now decide what to do next. Right. So every single time. So you have to reprioritize, you have to make these quick decisions. But not only that, you've been added new tasks, because it's like, okay, now, am I going to respond to these emails before I do the next task I have to do? When am I going to respond to these emails? There's just, obviously the brain is an amazing information processing, tool, but at the same time, it becomes so intense and so intensive that it consumes a lot of our energy. So when you can utilize time management tools that reduce those decisions and kind of create blocks of time where you can work on one particular thing, really truly focus and trust in yourself that everything can be handled when it's appropriate, takes a lot of that decision making out of the process. You can plan things ahead of time, developing that trust so that you can kind of use that energy you would spend like figuring things out, actually working on the task. And what ends up happening is the task that you're working on ends up being done in a better, more productive and quicker way. When we truly focus, we expend that energy where we need it, a lot of benefit comes from that. Not only in mental health, but just in our quality of work.
Sure.
And our self-esteem.
Yeah. So this is really good. So let me ask, like, what is your favorite time management tip or tool that you could share?
Okay. My favorite tip and the tip that I live by is block scheduling.
Okay.
And so that's one of the things that I teach in my course and in my webinars. And if somebody works with me one-on-one, is block scheduling for attorneys. And so block scheduling is essentially getting rid of your to-do list. Before you get rid of it, you need to put the tasks on your calendar. Then you get rid of it.
We're going to freak out about getting rid of the to-do list, right? Like all these type A personalities are like, no.
But the to-do list has the same issue as the the email inbox as a to-do list. So even if you have a written to-do list, look, I was a big into lists. I like to say I'm so into lists that I would add tasks that I already completed that were off the list. I would add them to the list just to cross them off. It's very satisfying to cross things off that list.
Yes.
But again, every time you go to a list, especially if it's a handwritten list, right, you have to decide, okay, what next? And how long is this going to take me? And do I need to like move this around? Or, what is the most important thing on this list? So there's a lot of decisions to be made. So in my program, I teach to make those decisions ahead of time before the work week starts, figure out everything that needs to be done. So create a nice to-do list. You get to do the to-do list, but then you take each task and you put it on your calendar in a block. So you know exactly how much time you have to complete each task. And then once everything's off the list and onto the calendar, you can cross it off, or you can, tear it up. And from there, you know exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it, and you don't have to make any more decisions about it. Now, obviously things are going to come up. We have to have a certain level of flexibility in our lives, but this takes so much of that decision-making energy out of your day.
Yeah. And it's almost like increasing automation, right? Like trying to make things more automatic. So what do you say to the person who says, no, or no, they say something along the lines of, well, I still can't just commit to what's on my calendar, right? Like, or I'm still procrastinating, or I'm pushing it forward on my calendar. I'm still not really ticking it off my to-do list. Do you have any guidance for someone who may have that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. Because those are all limiting beliefs. And like when someone says, I can't, my first thing is like, why would you choose to think that? Right. First of all, you know, of all the things that you've accomplished in your life, and you're telling me you can't do something with your calendar, like, know, that's a limiting belief. But, I do work a lot with procrastination. I do work a lot with, what that is often is people putting themselves last. We lose a lot of integrity with ourselves in our lives. We put ourselves last, especially women. We tend to put everything, and people pleasing. There's so many different things and reasons why we find it difficult to accomplish the things that we have set forth. I would say number one is really taking a look at priorities. That is key. Are you spending your time in line with what you say is your priority? Because if you say your priority is spending, time with your family, really being present with your family, but you're on your phone scrolling, there's no judgment there. Like we all do it, but it's just about getting real about how you are spending your time. And then recognizing that the solution here is not to cram more things into your schedule. So I'm not saying, let's figure out a way to cram more stuff in there. We have to be clear when someone's already having problems getting things done. We have to find efficiencies. We have to find solutions. But sometimes those solutions are going to be things like delegating. Sometimes those solutions are going to be, simplifying. So, maybe limiting the amount of time we're spending on social media, maybe having more boundaries around how clients can contact us or when clients can contact us. Even boundaries with staff, so there's a lot of different ways that we can manage that. And that's why as a one-on-one coach, I work closely with clients to deal with, what are the circumstances and also what are the thoughts? Because again, everything that is a stumbling block usually starts with that thought process. Like, I can't, I don't want to.
The old should, I should be doing this or that. That's always an interesting one to work with, right?
Absolutely. Shoulding ourselves all over the place. And the self-judgment that comes along with the should, because with the should is there's this standard that you are not living up to. And because of that, you suck. And so we beat ourselves up, and that is not motivating. That's not motivating. We think that we have to be hard on ourselves in order to succeed. But the truth is, the harder we are on ourselves, the less motivated we are to truly change and to truly like love ourselves. And I say in my coaching, all roads lead to self-worth. All roads for all of us. Almost everything comes down to that. When we truly embody self-worthiness for ourselves, and love ourselves, then it becomes much more effortless to take care of ourselves in this way, developing those boundaries. It doesn't mean not being kind. It doesn't mean not being generous. It means just having that protection, not only for other people, but for ourselves.
Yes. So what do you teach your clients about scheduling personal time ahead of everything else on calendars?
What I teach is you put your personal time first. That's what I was taught by Brooke, and that's what I carry forward in my coaching. You have to put yourself first. You cannot, and I know it's trite or cliche to say, you can't pour from an empty cup and you got to put your mask on first. But like, there's a reason why that's a cliche. It's fundamentally true. You serve others when you serve yourself. So if you are not taking care of you, you really can't take care of other people. So if you want to be a generous, giving person, I think most of us do want that, you have to take care of yourself. And so that means, when someone says, I don't have time to work out, like, do you really want this for yourself? Like, do you want it? If you want it, then you have to make time for it and you have to make it a priority. And if you don't, it's okay. But don't hold yourself up to a standard. Again, the shoulding, I should be doing this and I'm not doing it. You either want to or you don't. And if you want to, then you do it and you figure out a way to make it work. And it works by, figuring out your time. The other thing I would like to say is sleep.
I love me some sleep. So let's talk about sleep.
Sleep is so fundamental. And if you want to, the one tip besides time management is sleep management. And I would say that the two go hand in hand, because what I suggest my clients do is really figure out how much sleep they need, and not how much time they survive on, but how much time,
it's different, right?
Yeah, exactly. How much time really is going to allow you to be your best, not only the best attorney, but the best version of yourself, the best parent, the best mom, whatever. You need that sleep. There's so much research on the importance of sleep in terms of our stress management, our cortisol levels, just everything, our heart health. So really making that time, working backwards, is fundamental. Figuring out how much sleep you need for when you need to wake up, working backwards and finding a bedtime. Just like we were kids, finding that bedtime, and then a wind down period. I recommend a 30-minute wind down period prior to sleep, where you get rid of all of distractions, all devices. You can read, you can meditate, you can just, chill, have a conversation. But you really want to get the devices off.
Turn the devices off. Yes. I've noticed that, like, if I am like addicted to reading something on my device before I go to bed, it's that much harder for me to fall asleep that night. Like, because I'm just more like on edge, right? As opposed to like putting it away for a while.
Absolutely. Because you get a dopamine hit. You can get a dopamine hit or an adrenaline hit. If you're scrolling, it seems like, oh, I'm relaxing, I'm resting by just aimlessly looking at Facebook. But we know that the reason why, social media is so insidious and so addictive, and trust me, I'm not, no judgment, I'm there, is that we get the dopamine hit, oh, I got a like, or, oh, this is really great, I love this. I'm liking other things, I'm receiving the likes, or we are like, this makes me angry. And then we get that adrenaline spike, and now our cortisol levels are elevated. And yeah, of course, now we are, energized, and it's not conducive to us sleeping, either one of those things. So it is very beneficial to say, I know the iPhones, I think Androids have it as well. You could set your bedtime, and set your wake up time, and it automatically, goes into a wind down period where your notifications are turned off. And it's a great way to like say, okay, this is the time I put my phone away. And I have this time to myself to relax, rest, and get ready for sleep so that I can have more time, more energy to do the things I need to do the next day.
I love that you work with clients on sleep and sleep hygiene and all that. It's so important. I feel like it's definitely, people mention it, but it's still overlooked, the importance of sleep, right? And people think, well, I'll just plow through this, or like, I'll have my Starbucks in the morning and it'll be all good. But at the end of the day, like lack of sleep, like for me, it really impacts me after a few days.
100%. And the thing is, that's what we do, right? We are exhausted. So we sleep in. So maybe we're not working out in the mornings when we could be, because we're so tired, and it's a good excuse. Like, I'm tired, I'm just going to sleep in. Great. But now you're not taking care of something else that can actually help you sleep. Exercise helps you sleep. But then we get hopped up in coffee, and again, no judgment. I love coffee, but we're drinking so much coffee that we're, again, coffee's great, but it also contributes to not being able to sleep well at night. So the more coffee we consume, the more difficulties we have with sleep. But also it's an upper, and coffee can cause anxiety. And so part of the stress and anxiety that we experience is also exacerbated by the coffee we're drinking. So we have like some triple whammies here. We have we have the not sleeping enough. So we're already irritable and having elevated cortisol levels. Then we're drinking coffee to compensate. And that is causing us, more anxiety, more cortisol, more adrenaline. And then we're not exercising to kind of burn off some of that energy. And so we're just like a bundle of nerves and stress. And then we ask ourselves, why are things not working?
Right. Okay. So listen here, I do the exercise, I go to bed early, but you are not taking away my coffee.
Girl. I hear you. No.
All of these things, I do try to cut it off at a certain point, right? During the day. Like, not afternoon. It's not always possible, but, I know it's possible, right? That was just a limiting belief. But I think it's interesting that you can work with your clients kind of on these three different things, right? And it's like going in there and kind of helping them break those bad habits, helping them get into a state where they're going to bed at a decent time because they've not been jacked up on coffee all day, right? And they've had that really good workout. And then the next morning they feel good enough to wake up at a decent time, right? So they can have that intense workout, or whatever. Yeah. It's just breaking that cycle for people. And maybe especially lawyers can be really challenging.
100%. I think
you're going to play, right? This is how you help people.
Exactly. It's accountability. It's being there. It's like showing the way. Because we're so used to not having integrity with ourselves. That's really what coaching comes back down to, is developing that integrity with ourselves, that developing that self-worth, saying, I deserve this. I deserve to have that good life. And I have to treat myself in a way that ensures that I'm going to have that life that I want. So it's really working with those mindset issues, and accountability. That's it. It's like, having a partner, as humans, it's really hard to do things alone. It is hard. And having an accountability partner, somebody who, really cares about you and cares about your progress, that's able to kind of have that perspective. That's what a coach is. If you even think about like an athletic coach, it's that accountability partner. It's like that someone who sees a big picture that can call you on your bullshit, in a loving way.
In a very loving way, correct?
But we need that. I'm like, I don't mince words. I'm a very direct person. Like, listen, that's bullshit, and that's bullshit, and it's okay. No judgment. I do the same thing, but let's find a way that serves us and serves our purpose. So we have purpose-driven, conscious lives rather than unconscious, lives with, just basically, Groundhog Day, reliving the same day over and over and over again.
Right. And constantly being reactive, right? Being
Oh, yeah.
reactive to the inbox.
And at the effect of, reactive and at the effect of, rather than empowered, in control, and calm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I love all this. So I want to be really respectful of your time. Okay. First of all, can I ask you one more question? Do you have
Sure.
a couple minutes?
Oh, I have. Yeah.
Okay. I need to know, or I would like to know, what is next for you, and specifically like with your coaching and working with lawyers. And of course, I would love for people to know where else they can find you.
I constantly try to keep things updated on my website. Just we always like to have a new free course coming up so people can get the value. I have a podcast that is coming out weekly, and just trying to let people know that they can have that life filled with balance, harmony, and joy. It really is possible, even for lawyers.
It is possible. It is so possible. So I want to thank you for hanging out with me today, Laura. It's been so much fun.
Awesome. Thank you. And you too. I'm so excited for you and this podcast. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Legally Blissed Conversations. If you love this episode and you want to hang out with other inspiring and light gold female attorneys, be sure to join the Legally Blissed community at legallyblissed.com. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Susie Hickson. See you next time.